welcome to this week's video. I'm freelance fiction editor Miranda Darrow, and this is my weekly chat about writing, editing, and the writing life. We're doing another novel deep dive, and this time it's Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer. In case you missed our earlier videos in the series, Novel Deep Dive is where I invite a guest to break down a recent best-selling title and use that novel to talk about an aspect of writing craft. For example, our first novel deep dive was an exploration of reverse timeline story structure featuring Peter Swanson's Kill Your Darlings. And you can find that chat with author Sophia Chang on my YouTube channel. I want to start this with the spoiler warning. If you have not yet read Just for the Summer and you don't want it spoiled, pause this video and come back after you've read it, because there will be spoilers for a featured book. We are pulling it apart. This is a forensic science, alien autopsy level examination of the book that can include plot spoilers. But as romance readers know, because this is a romance, it will have a happy ending. So I've already spoiled it. But if you want to pause this and come back after you've read it, feel free. It's a great read. This month's novel deep dive is a contemporary romance by Minnesota's own Abby Jimenez. And we're exploring the various ways that the author uses the trope of the curse of being the last person to date somebody before they find their one true pairing, and how that curse and this trope drives the plot and the character arcs in the novel. My special guest this month is super reader Ellie Dynek. Ellie is from my romance book club that I used to attend when I lived in the Twin Cities. And we used to meet at a local pizza place where we'd have just the best discussions about romance novels and life in general. And we'd have great holiday parties, including blind date with a book and lots of fun. When I thought about having an in-depth conversation about romance novels, I immediately thought of my old book club and reached out. And Ellie so graciously agreed to join me. Welcome, Ellie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Ellie's a librarian in the Denver Public Libraries, and she also works as a doula, and she's a romance super reader. So let's jump in. The main trope in this story is that the two main characters are both cursed to be the last person that dates somebody else before that person meets their one true love. They're both a lucky charm for other people, but they are destined to never find true loves themselves. So the premise is that our hero, Justin, posted an Am I the Asshole, AITIA, post on Reddit about whether he was a jerk for naming his ugly dog after his best friend who just got engaged to his most recent ex, and that this was just one in a stream of former girlfriends who ended up marrying the guy that they dated immediately after they have broken up with Justin. And then our heroine, Emma, who also has this curse, her best friend points her to this story because she too has this same curse, that the men that she dates go on to find their one true love immediately after. So she slips into his DMs and tells him that she has the same curse of being their ex's lucky charm and unable to find their own true love. So they start texting each other, and then they bond over their shared curse, and then they come up with the idea of dating each other to break the curse, and then we're off. So here are some questions for our discussion. The central trope is that they're the last ones to date before they meet the one is a little bit of a rom-com urban legend. And this story features not one, but two cursed characters. How do you think Jimenez uses this trope to create emotional conflict rather than just comedic chaos?
Well, I think it starts off very funny. I mean, it's a Reddit post about him asking, is he an asshole? And it sets up to be like, oh, this is really funny. But then you dive deeper into both Justin and Emma's personal lives, where Justin has experienced a lot of personal loss. His father died when he was young, and now his mother's going to prison for a significant amount of time, and he's being left with his three siblings. And then you look at Emma, where she's dealt with a neglectful and very toxic relationship with her mother. And it's sort of like they've almost put themselves into the position of being cursed rather than being cursed themselves. So I think that Jimenez starts it off as being like, here's another example of the trope of one true cursed to never find the one, but then sets it off to be like, here's more how they got to be that way, rather than here's like, it just happened out of the blue, which I thought was very interesting. And this was actually my first time reading one of Jimenez's books.
Okay, because this was actually the second in the series, but I too read out of order and didn't read the first one. So now I have to circle back. I agree that this trope is not superficial and it's integrated into the plot. It's so interesting that we get two flavors of this curse. So Justin kind of falls into the trope of nice guys finish last, Another way it shows up as a trope is always the bridesmaid, that he's too nice. No one develops strong feelings for Justin. It's kind of like the plot of the movie 28 Dresses, where always a bridesmaid. And he stays true to his nice guy personality, that this is a feature, not a flaw, because he's a total cinnamon roll. But the other side, Emma, she is not the too nice. Her curse is kind of more of a self-fulfilling prophecy because she actively pushes away anybody that gets too close. And her job as a travel nurse, she's moving every 6 months. So she's literally running away whenever somebody would get close. She's terrified of abandonment because of her terrible upbringing with her mom, who literally abandoned her and showing up in the foster care system. And she's unwilling to risk getting close enough for anybody else to hurt her. And moving every like 3 months, I think it was, this enabled her fear and allowed her to continue this pattern. So even though both Justin and Emma have kind of the same curse, they have it for different reasons and it causes different things in their lives. Do you think the curse feels plausible, symbolic, or both?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's plausible because both Justin and Emma have issues in their pasts that are present in their burgeoning relationship that are making it that they might always be in that always the nice guy or always the bridesmaid, always kind of role. I do think, though, it was symbolic because they needed to sort of find a way to grow past that. So for Emma, it was dealing with her very complicated feelings toward her mother. And then for Justin, it was sort of figuring out his new role in life as a surrogate father to his siblings or sort of the head of the family, whilst also being in a relationship with this person that he deeply cares about, but that she, at the time when he is really like all in, she is not yet emotionally ready to give all of herself to their possible relationship.
I know your heart just hurts for him so much. I think the curse was a little bit contrived, but it also set up some good symbolism. I think there's quite a bit of symbolism in the book, like the island where they rent the house where Emma and her best friend, the other travel nurse, spend 6 weeks, and how it looks exciting and fun. But then when you're actually living on an island, that's very isolating and it's difficult. And it's just like you can't even get a pizza. So it becomes what looks like it's fun and romantic is actually an inconvenience. And then becomes dangerous when she gets ill later and can't get like easy access to medical care. Sometimes tropes in romance novels are limited to just one scene, like the just one bed trope, which I happen to like, and plays more of a background role or like a trope setting. Do you think the use of the trope in this case is more integrated into the story's plot and the character arcs, and why?
I do think it was much more integrated. At first, when I was reading the back of the book, when I first got it, I was like, oh, okay, I've heard of this trope before. So it's going to kind of play out the way that it usually does. They're going to go on these dates and then they're going to fall in love. But it was much more integrated into their personalities as well. So you sort of see like why Justin is the way he is, why Emma is the way she is, and how that curse sort of binds to their personality types. So with Emma, she's so used to leaving that the idea of being left doesn't necessarily bother her as much as it might someone else. When I was reading it, it seemed like her best friend was much more bothered by the, hey, this guy's cursed the same way you are. And she's like, is he though? Where it seemed like it bothered the best friend more than it bothered Emma. I feel like it bothered Justin more than Emma on this, in the sense of like, I think Justin was ready to be part of a relationship, like he'd seen his parents' relationship and he'd seen his friends sort of find their partner. So he was ready for that. I think he was hurt by the nice guy role that he'd been thrust into, but it didn't seem like he was so like, woe is me. Like, I am just the worst luck in the world. It was more like, hey, this is happening. It kind of sucks, but I'm dealing with it. And
this is one of the things that sucks in Justin's life. His mom going to prison, having to take care of his 3 younger siblings. And then, oh, by the way, he can't ever like be in a long-term relationship because people keep ditching him for somebody else.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, it was like,
that was lower on the list.
Pretty low on the overall list. Let's go down by rank of importance, or at least it kind of felt like that.
Yeah, I felt like that this story couldn't be told without this trope. And so sometimes tropes, you can take them or leave them, but this is like, it's part of the main plot thrust. It was they met because of the Am I the Asshole post. And then Emma changes her travel schedule because they were supposed to go to Hawaii, but instead they go to Minnesota, which is samesies, right? I mean, as far as glamour and prestige. And I say that, readers, as a person who's lived in Minnesota the last 30 years, they develop a set of rules that are all constructed as a way to break the curse. And so there was so much thought into this. It was like this checklist. It's like we have to date at least this many times. There has to be at least a kiss, but we don't have to have sex. All these rules about everything that had happened in the previous times. And then they spent nearly 70 pages working through the mechanics of breaking the curse before they even meet. They don't meet until page 70. And I was just like, this is one of the slowest paced contemporary romances I've read in a while. But I think part of that was just Emma needing to process and say, am I even going to allow myself to go and date this guy?
And that's what I really liked about it, though, is that it was so much of the ball being in Emma's court, because Justin was the one who posted the Reddit thread and was sort of the one who was like the one that started it all. You would think like, oh, he'd be like, hey, come out here. Like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. And he wasn't that way, though. It was very much like Emma's decision. And, you know, she had a lot of other things going on, and especially where she had to sort of bribe the best friend to come with her.
Yes.
Because
I'm going to give you the next 2 picks, Maddie, if you just let me go to Minnesota. And just for 6 weeks, right? It was only half of their usual 3-month commitment. Yeah.
Very short amount of time and just really throwing everything off. It really felt like that was part of where Emma was sort of taking back control, because as we said, you know, she'd been neglected so many times by her mom, who is like the one person she should be able to rely on for some source of dependability. When she doesn't have that, then it's sort of everything falls to her, and having the best friend there, I think, really helped her sort of make that decision.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. Justin and Emma, I kind of answered this one, but I'll give you a chance. Both have the same trope, but do you think it impacts them the same way, or do they experience it differently?
I'll kind of reinforce my answer. I think it affects them differently. For Justin, it's just a part of his life, but it's not the overarching theme for how he views himself or how he views the direction his life is going. He's so many things to so many people. He's the oldest son or the oldest child. He's the surrogate father. He's the responsible one. He's sort of the rescuer to the situation.
He's also a reliable friend. He stays friends with these people who get engaged with his exes,
which is very impressive in
weddings.
Right?
Yes. I agree. I think he's a total cinnamon roll, and she's just protecting herself from having this wound that she hasn't dealt with from her mother's abandonment yet. So she's using it as a protective shell, and he's just kind of rolling with it. It's like, yeah, I'm a nice guy. And so
that's such a hard thing to deal with, though, as for Emma, though, of the parental neglect, parental abuse. That's always such a hard topic to touch on. And Abby Jimenez did such a great job because it felt so realistic the way she wrote it, where we have Emma who she's made something of herself. She's a nurse. She's a traveling nurse. She's a great friend. She has all these really great qualities, yet underneath it all, she's still like this 7-year-old girl who was abandoned by her mom, who is, I would guess, profoundly mentally ill. They never said an outright diagnosis, but I would say maybe unmedicated bipolar or something.
I kind of got that impression too. And the way that the trauma came out in just little moments was so well done that Emma doesn't like carrots, because one time when her mom abandoned her, she had to survive on digging carrots out of the neighbor's garden. And that's all she had to eat for like a week before her mom decided to come back and remember that she had a child. And it's just like, oh, it's just like, we need to help you and heal you.
That's so realistic, though. I mean, I've read stories where one kiddo really didn't like riding in the car at night because he and his mom had to sleep in their car for a few weeks when he was growing up. So I really admired the way Jimenez just sort of presented the trauma, not as like this big dump or like this big explosion at the end. It was just like little
hits. Yeah.
Because that's how life really is, like we're all impacted by the experiences we've lived through, but they're not always right at the forefront of our minds. Sometimes they just pop up out
people are not walking around with a half an hour monologue. It shows up in small ways, but it takes Emma right out of that scene and back to that place. And then when she finally does share some of it with Justin, that's huge.
That was very impressive, yeah.
Yeah. They set up their summer challenge to break the curse with specific rules based on their previous relationships that ended up sending their exes on to meet their mates. This includes detailed conversations and documentation of their 4 dates, 1 kiss, and a breakup. So that was their pattern. We're going to have at least 4 dates, We're going to have one kiss, then we're going to have a breakup, and then the curse is broken, and then we will able to both go meet somebody else. It was never the plan that they would be with each other. They ended up having more than 4 dates and more than just a kiss. Did you think that this structure and this formula for breaking it was overkill, or did you think it was cute, and how did it impact the story?
I honestly thought it was really cute when they set it up to be like, okay, here's how we're going to go about our burgeoning relationship. It felt more like these two people who couldn't believe they were actually doing what they were doing. Like they met on a Reddit thread and they're actually making plans to meet in real life. So it felt at first like they were kind of just going along with the motions. So it was really funny and cute. And it did impact the story, though, in the sense of you could kind of see with Emma, she's starting to break away from that pattern of wanting to be the one who leaves or being okay with the one who gets left. Like she's ready to sort of take the reins and be in a relationship with this person who she's never met before, but she's kind of like going with a gut instinct of like, hey, this could be cool.
Yeah, my favorite part was how Justin avoided kissing her with a real kiss to prolong the challenge. And she really did want more. So he gave her this like chaste forehead kiss. And we're like, wow, that's the sexiest forehead kiss in history. And Emma really did want it more because he was holding back. And so I thought that was adorable. And he's just like, well, once I do that, then we'll have had fulfilled this and then it's going to end. So I'm just not going to do that.
That was really adorable, honestly. That was just like, I was squealing a little bit when I read that part.
Yep. Okay. Next question. This is a slow burn romance because they're living in different cities in the beginning and when they first connect, and they don't even meet each other in person until chapter 8, 78 pages in. Many contemporary romances, characters have already had sex at this point, but these two are moving much slower. Do you think that the break the curse trope was related to the slower pacing in this romance?
Not as such, honestly. I feel like the break the curse trope was more of the foundation for how they met and how they got started. The more they talked to each other and the more time they spent with each other, it honestly felt like they were just comfortable being with each other. There was not like this rush to immediately get naked and jump into bed. Like some writers, when they use the break the curse trope, it's immediately like you have to have sex at this time in the relationship, or like we're just gonna get mad crazy hot and just jump into bed. That didn't feel this way. This way felt more like two people who had found each other through the most random of circumstances, that they both had a curse on them, but then they find that they actually really like each other. And I think for Justin, it was different how they perceived it. So for Justin, it was like, hey, my life is really in turmoil right now, so I'm finding joy with this person who I may or may not ever see again. And then with Emma, it was more like, I'm taking a chance with 6 weeks in this random place I've never been to spend time with a guy I met on the internet. But what do I have left to lose? Like her life, courtesy of her mom and kind of the bouncing around she's been doing, she is sort of used to these random acts of fate, but it seemed like she put more stock in this one. So it didn't feel so much like the break the curse trope was impacting the story as it moved forward. I think it definitely played a part in the intro and setting up the foundation for how they saw each other and how they chose to quote unquote break the curse. But I don't think it really fit into the slower pacing as much. I think honestly the slower pacing was more of the way Jimenez chose to write their relationship.
I agree. I think that the trope that you often see that impacts pacing to make it faster is when the characters don't like each other, enemies to lovers usually, and they decide to have sex to get it out of their system. And that never works. And then they're just like, oh, I kind of really like that. Maybe we should do that some more. And so that one usually leads to very quick pacing for physical intimacy. And honestly, I was a bit surprised as we learned more and more about Emma, that she was even interested in breaking this curse, because being the lucky charm for her exes seemed more of her style. And then I'm moving on and they can go have a happy life, but she's jet setting. The thought of actually forming a lasting relationship with anyone was not really consistent with what she saw for her life. So then why is she bribing Maddie, her best friend, roommate, fellow nurse, to come to Minnesota to break this curse when she never really wants to be with somebody long term? And so I was like, And I thought it was because she thought it'd be fun to have a fling with Justin, not because she thought it was really going to break the curse. But I don't know that there was any textual support for that, but I'm going with it. And I think that the slow pacing was all due to Emma and getting herself to a place where she was willing to even pursue a guy that she liked, because usually she's cute, she meets people, she doesn't have to work hard to find a fling. And here's one that she's actually pursuing because he's so sweet. He's such a cinnamon roll.
He really is. And I was just like, oh, can you clone one of him for me so I can have one?
Yes, let's get a couple Justins out here, even though they have a J name. I always think that the break the curse trope is kind of more of a natural fit in fantasy, probably based on me watching way too much Once Upon a Time and Rumpelstiltskin. And do you think that it worked in this contemporary romance, and how did it play out differently than it would have in a fantasy romance?
I think it did work out really well for a contemporary romance. I think it might have just been for this particular story, though, because I will definitely have to find more examples of break the curse trope in contemporary. Because, you know, at the beginning, we start with where Justin and Emma both are in the story. Like, Emma has all of this sort of emotional backlog that she knows it's there, but she hasn't touched on it yet. And then we have Justin, who's sort of in the whirlwind of these major life changes. So they're both like right at the start of something. But then when we get to the end of the book, so when Emma comes back to Minneapolis, when Justin's sister, whose name I'm also forgetting, the older one who gets her
teenage girl, yeah, the one,
whatever her name is, I'm so sorry. I remember their names. I cannot remember the siblings' names, which I pride myself on. So this is not a proud moment for me.
It wasn't Chelsea. Chelsea was the youngest sister. We'll find it, but the teenage sister calls her and reaches out because she's having an emergency at school where she got her first period, and she does not want to have to call Justin. And who blames her? Yes.
So I'm the oldest of four, so I did not have an older brother situation. But if I did have an older brother, he would not be the one I call when that happened. He would be like the last person on my mind, honestly.
I do have an older brother. I don't have any sisters, but I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. And I am not calling any brothers. I am picking a name out of the phone book and calling a random old lady first.
Seriously. But like when we get to that part of the book, and then we see both where Justin and Emma are at that point, how much they've changed, how much they've grown. Like Justin realizes,
there's a long timeline in this. This was months. Yeah.
I think it was almost a full year between when they started chatting and then when they got back together before then the epilogue. Because the epilogue is, I think, 2 years after the last chapter.
Right. Yep.
So it was a long while, but I really thought that the way you see that the curse has sort of been broken when you get to that part of the book, like Emma is dealing with her trauma. She's not like 100% cured, but I don't think that's something you can ever say to someone who's deals with emotional trauma. Like it's always there, but I think that she's dealing with it and she's not letting it control her feelings, control her mind as much as it used to. And then Justin is kind of settling into this new role in his life. Like it's still, there's a little major learning curve. There's a lot he still has to figure out for himself. But the fact that he did it, like his own thoughts, his own figuring it out, like Emma was not a part of that. And Justin was not a part of Emma's journey towards sort of self-healing. I think it shows that the curse was in fact broken towards the end, but the fact that they each broke their own curse on by themselves, if that makes sense.
Yes, they both had agency. They both had to do that. And I love that for them.
I really love that. I was like, okay, towards the middle of the book where it's clear like they're both dealing with their own things, I was like, I really love the way they are together. They have great chemistry. They get along with each other's friends and family.
They're heading for a
Oh yeah, it was seriously. It was
all gonna fall apart. They haven't done the healing yet.
No, when it got to that part, I was just like, "Oh, thank the Lord!" They got their poop in a group, and I was like, "Yay!" And
I was
really happy when they got back together because I was like, "You two still love each other. You just have to actually talk," which I know seems to be the major crux of a lot of relationships is actually just talking.
Yeah, it is. When I compare this to like break the curse trope in fantasy, the one big comparison I was like is, do people really think that this is a curse? Because in fantasy, usually the curse is real. It's a thing that happened. And in contemporary, it's a thing people joke about, but nobody thinks it's an actual curse, or do they? And so I don't think anybody thought it was an actual curse. And so they didn't have to like gather up an eye of newt and, you know, the eyebrow of an X or any of those fun things that they would be gathering in like a romantasy or something. But I did like to at least visualize Robert Carlyle, who played Mr. Gold and Rumpelstiltskin and Once Upon a Time, because his thing was every magic always requires a price. And so what was the price? And I think that Emma had to give up her protective walls. And that was the price to break this curse. And that was hard for her. It was so hard, but she did it and she was able to break the curse because of that.
It was so hard to read about that, though, because it wasn't only her protective walls, it was sort of maybe this illusion she had about her mother, like that her
Oh, I
mom.
know. She had to see her mom the way that Maddie saw her.
Yeah, and
And
it was so
Maddie
hard
saw her as a villain from the start.
and they're both nurses, so it's like they've both been trained to see mental illness, but Emma sees it from the point of view of a daughter. So then, whatever point in the book it was where her mom said that the person she'd been talking to, whom Emma thought was an actual therapist, was more like a spiritualist.
An
It's just
aura
like
guy.
you hear the glass shattering, and I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
really hate this for you, Emma, because you're going to be in so much pain. But also, like, finally, the glass is breaking. You see that
Yes, the veil has been removed
the veil
and you
is
can now
gone.
see clearly. Yes.
And that was really hard. But also, towards in the epilogue, when Justin's posting the Reddit thread about proposing and he says, my girlfriend's mom's, where it was like, she finally said they're her moms. Ah,
Yes, I know because
so
Maddie, okay, so for the readers who haven't read that are getting spoiled, her best friend Maddie's moms had taken Emma in foster care and had helped raise her. But Emma never would refer to them as her moms because she had this other mom, the one who abandoned her, who was terrible and that would have been disloyal. And she never really saw herself as part of Maddie's family, even though they wanted her to be. And so you're right, that acceptance was a huge step for Emma.
I just really love that. And then seeing that also with Justin, when Emma leaves and is gone for 6 months, and you kind of wonder like how Justin's doing with his siblings, that he figured it out on his own. He was heartbroken that Emma had left, but he didn't let that stop him. That was just another part
He
of his.
still had stuff to do, man. He
And
had
he did
three
it.
kids he had to take care of and a job and friends that wanted him to do stuff. And he had a supportive community. He had people who would do babysitting and stuff like that for him. So,
Which I so loved. And also that
yeah,
the mom went to prison. Like, she did a bad thing. Admittedly, not like the worst thing that a person could ever do, but like not great. And you have all these people who are just coming up to support her and her family. And it was just like, I love that because it's not like she did that Nigerian prince internet scheme. She stole money from a charity, not great.
she stole money from a charity and she took her kids to Disney with it.
Which is not great. But consider the fact that she lost her husband in a drunk driving accident and she had 4 children. And I don't remember how old Justin was when his dad died.
He's early 20s now. So how old would he have been?
Oh, I thought he was maybe in his teens, even like 17.
Yeah, I think he was a teenager when it happened. Yeah.
So they were not like little kids, but still like losing a spouse so abruptly and just kind of having your world implode on itself a little bit. You can kind of see why she did that.
But his youngest sister was like a toddler. I'm going to swap the last two orders of the questions here. Were there any other parts of the book that showed how the author was able to weave in the use of this break the curse trope to engage the readers?
I don't think so. I was thinking about that, and it honestly felt like the break the curse trope was more prevalent, like openly mentioned in the beginning of the book. And then as you go further into it, you sort of see the nuances of the trope, but it's not like right up there for you to see. So I'm thinking about it, and I honestly don't think so.
One other place that I thought there was a part when Emma acknowledged that her real curse was the relationship with her mom, Amber, and the lasting psychological damage that neglect and abandonment had left in Emma, in that she would always leave others before they could leave her. And so to me, that was just like, ooh, we have now tied this curse very clearly to your emotional wound. All right, now we're going to cover the last one. And I wanted to flip the order because this last one could take a while and I didn't want to lose that one. Okay, what other tropes did you notice in this book and did you think they were well done? Because we love tropes.
Well, I'm not sure what the name of this trope would be exactly, but I feel like a lot of them is like the found family, as it were.
Yeah.
Or where it's a sibling take or like a single parent kind of trope. Like he was the single parent, but even though he wasn't quote unquote the parent, like he wasn't the father, he was the brother. But that was still a huge part of it. Like that's what prevented him from really going gung-ho in with Emma in the first place, because he was like, hey, just so you know, my mom's going to prison and I'm going to take custody of my 3 siblings for the next 6 years. So that's kind of why I
Yes.
agreed to this short timeline. But then it's also how Emma comes into that. A lot of people would run for the other side of the country if they saw that, but she doesn't. Like she's so used to it.
Especially people who don't want children.
As
Yes.
she says very loudly and very clearly multiple times, but she just goes right into it. And I think a lot of it was that, her childhood was so disruptive and filled with turmoil that she sort of sees how to help these kids in a way that maybe Justin doesn't understand or can't comprehend as well as she can. It's sort of like when you've lived through something, you're more equipped to handle the emotional fallout from it.
Yeah, the other tropes that I thought that came in, well, first was hurt comfort. She got norovirus and he came up to the island and nursed her. And then, of course, he got sick and she had to return the favor. And then there was kind of a twist on fake dating because this whole premise that they had about 4 dates, one kiss, and a breakup, that's something that somebody would do if they were like, well, we're going to pretend that we're dating, to go to this person's wedding or whatever, to keep my grandmother off my back or whatever. But they were actually dating, but like every fake dating trope always ends up with the couple really liking each other. So that was interesting too. And then there was like the setting of the island that was kind of pulled into the tone about some things look better than they are. I wouldn't want to live on that island and have to take a boat every time you want to go somewhere.
Especially the coup de grace of the island home being rented to them by her new boss, who then starts dating
Yes,
her
who
mother.
dates her mom, who's a train wreck, and her mom is out doing her mom stuff and burning shit down
That
while
really
you're
threw me,
there
where
in this guy's guest house.
his house is burning to the ground. It's like a scene from
Literally.
Jane Eyre, and he's just sitting there happy as a clam. And I'm just like, dude, come on, wake up. It just seemed like he did not really see the chaos that was in front of him. It's more like he put himself in that situation to punish himself
willfully ignorant.
right?
And so he is a
very
character in the first book in the series. He's not one of the love interests. He's like the antagonist in the first book in the series. What is that? Part of Your World or something like that. So
yeah,
you
which
may
I
have to
actually
check it
started
out.
reading that. So I'm
Okay,
looking
all
forward
right.
to introducing myself to him.
I got one more thing. When you lived in the Twin Cities, did you ever see the Chris Lindahl ads? Because she features the Toilet King, and then she says in the back part that it was actually inspired by the Chris Lindahl ad campaign for real estate. Have you seen those?
I do see it. I think I maybe saw it once, but it was not enough to really make an impression on me.
And so she had said that this real estate mogul dude, Chris Lindahl, who has a bazillion ads all over, and he's always got his arms out like this, that he was the inspiration for the Toilet King. And then he had agreed to allow her to use that. But then she wanted to go farther with Toilet King. And so so I did think that that was funny, just living in the Twin Cities and having seen all of those. And that when she's coming back into them, that's one of the first things she sees. And I'm like, Toilet King, there we go. Toilet King for the win.
That was really funny, though.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a nice recurring gag that kept coming back. Anything else that you'd like to point out that you think that authors and just readers who are friends of romance would be able to like look to only just for the summer and say, oh, hey, I could, that's a really good example.
I think this book might be one of the best examples of a slow burn contemporary romance that I have read in a very long time. Because
it is super slow.
Like with a lot of slow burn, I feel like there's sort of this range to which authors will be like, okay, I'm going to make it so that they don't have sex until the very end of the book. Or I'm going to make it that they don't meet each other until the middle. And then like we don't actually see anything happen between them. I feel like she balanced the scales just right to where Emma and Justin talk first, then they meet, then they start to get closer. And it's only like once they're really like emotionally connected on some level, not 100%, but on some level, do they actually become intimate? And I really liked that because it wasn't
not until after some sensuous forehead kissing.
Oh, yes, the forehead kissing was very like, woo. I really liked it, though. I definitely want to recommend it more to people. It's like if you're looking for a good romance where it's a slow burn, but it feels realistic, honestly. Like if I were to encounter this in real life, I would be like, okay, yeah, like I can definitely see this happening.
Yeah, it was so cute too. I think that Just for the Summer is a case study in how much writing structure you can actually build onto a trope. I love how it was integrated into just the premise and absolutely into Emma's character growth arc. Justin had some growth in there too, but it was really fundamental to Emma's growth arc.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that Emma had more of the character growth or more of her arc was focused on character growth. Like Justin definitely had some moments where he had to learn and change, but honestly, it felt like Emma had more of like
She
growth.
was the one who had to come back and do the groveling. And so she
I
had to
liked
make
that
the
though.
grand gesture and risk rejection. Yes.
Which I was like, okay, after she has been the one who has been left, I think when she did the leaving, I was like, do you maybe see how other people might have felt when you did that? Or how does
Yeah.
it feel to be on the other side of that? I really actually
Shoes
liked
on the
that.
other foot now.
I
Yes.
actually really liked though that she got to leave and kind of have her own space and that Justin didn't chase after her or spend months like calling her or writing her. I was like, he
Yeah. No.
recognizes that she needs space and he gives it to her, even though he's heartbroken. He gives her that space.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellie. This was excellent. And thank you to all the viewers. If you're a writer or an avid reader and you think you'd like to join me for a future novel deep dive, join my newsletter. That's where I'm lining up guests for future books. And I'm also taking suggestions for novels to tackle on specific writing topics. You can join my newsletter at www.mirandadarrow.com or email me. My email is on my YouTube channel profile and it's also on my website. And if you like the discussion, please like, share, and subscribe. Join this channel next week for another video on writing, editing, and the writing life. And we'll have another novel deep dive next month where we'll be talking about Missing White Woman by Kelly Garrett, where the author Barbara Jean Carden and I will explore the role of social media and the internet on contemporary mystery novels. That's going to be a fun discussion with lots of tips for writers and mystery readers. And until then, I'm freelance fiction editor Miranda Darrow, wishing you happy writing.